What does FEV stand for?
That's a really good question. I tell people these days that it stands for education victories, but what it technically stands for is focus, the word focus, and then eduvation.
Sometimes it's just happening that way, like, or just take us into the way that actually it sounds like already set up for, but like sometimes we just end up in for no reason.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think that's how it works.
How's it going, Ryan?
I'm doing well, Al. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great.
That's awesome.
It's been a while.
It's been a minute. I hope college is going well. Excited for Thanksgiving tomorrow and have it.
For sure. College is doing great so far. I just enjoy the feeling right there. Everything's doing great. So today I'm going to interview Ryan, an entrepreneur and the co-founder and the team member of FEV Tutor, and great educational company. So I read this thing. I saw that you graduated from Ithaca College at 2005, right? And then you went into called IPS Sports, right? Directly to work right there as a team members. So tell me about the first job that you took after you graduated from college.
Yeah. So I did go to Ithaca College. Good research. I like it. Looking at my LinkedIn profile and remembering all of it. That's outstanding. Ithaca College was an amazing opportunity for me and an amazing experience. I think it ended up offering me the opportunity to come to Boston and work at ISP Sports, as you said, which is a sports marketing firm. And so to be honest with you, my very first job out of college was I was a substitute teacher in Watertown, New York at my old high school. For about 6 months. I was a teacher and I worked for ISP Sports as an intern in Syracuse. But that college experience allowed me the opportunity to have a network to get into that company, ISP Sports. So it was a sports marketing firm. We were selling radio advertising for Boston College sports. I had an office in the football stadium at BC that looked over the football stadium, and it was a really fun job, but it was really tough in this market. The Red Sox, the Celtics, the Bruins, the Patriots, and I was trying to sell Boston College advertising on the radio. So if one thing it taught me a lot about selling and marketing in a really tough environment. But that first job was all because of the network that I had at Ithaca College and the college that I chose to go to.
So you think Ithaca College really helped you a lot in terms of business world and help you getting into a new world, basically, right?
Absolutely. Ithaca College, and I tell this to anybody, the college experience is a great one. You're experiencing it right now. Really great. I made lifelong friends there. I learned a lot at Ithaca College, but ultimately one of the things that really propelled my career was the business network and the network of Ithaca College alumni, and that's how I got to Boston. That's how I got my first job, and
great.
The rest. I know we're going to talk about it, but the rest, shall they say, is history. But it got me here to Boston, which sets off a chain of events moving forward.
Sometimes it's just happening that way, like world just take us into the way that actually it sounds like already set up for, but sometimes we just end up in here for no reason.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think that's how it worked.
So why do you, what makes you to embark your career on the educational world?
This self-described business geek comes from a family of educators and started his career as a subs teacher in upstate New York. Brian inherited and strong passions for education and is able to excel in his role as a division leader from his parents.
That's a really important question, Al. My mom, she's a reading teacher by trade. She's been a interventionist, a special ed teacher. She still actually works at an education service center in my hometown in Watertown, New York, and supports 27 school districts. So she's really a big part of my inspiration for building this company and going into education. My sister is a high school math teacher in Rochester, New York. That's where we had moved before, and you mentioned it. And she works at a high need school that's really on like a 10-year transformation plan. So some students that really need her help the most. And my grandmother was a science teacher. So after that experience working in sports marketing, and, you know, just my inherent like passion for doing business and building businesses and solving problems, like the intersect of that with the mission of this company is really because of my family history and a lot of educator DNA in my blood. So that's really where my mission and passion and motivation comes from in terms of being in the education market.
So you think family is a huge factor, and that push you and that actually impact you to get into the educational world eventually?
Absolutely. Number one driver. Really, that those educators help shape who I am. And so, you know, the fortunate part for me is that there was an intersect between, you know, building a business that can help impact students and make a difference, and, you know, do interesting and innovative things along the way. And like you and I think we like to do a little bit of business and solve problems and come up with solutions and technology related stuff. So you can do both things at the same time. You can help students and make an impact and build a business, which is great. But that's exactly where it came from.
Which lead into my next question. So can you tell us a little bit about your company, FEV Tutor?
Absolutely. So FEV Tutor was founded in 2009. So that's when we did our thing in Boston at Boston College, and then we came over and, you know, found FEV Tutor. For 13 years, we've been, you know, working tirelessly to drive the greatest amount of academic outcomes in K through 12 public education, specifically through partnership with school districts. And the way we do that is through one-to-one online high-impact tutoring. So we decided that we would leverage online learning to be innovative and to be integrated into scale when that was at its infancy. We thought that that would be a growing trend in terms of how students learn, and you may be doing the same thing at Clark now, taking your classes online or doing a lot of things that you can do virtually. And we wanted to combine that with something that we thought was powerful for students, which was tutoring. And so that's what we do across the country. We're probably, if not the number one online tutoring company in K through 12 education, we're the top three. And so we've worked really hard to organically grow our organization. But basically, in a simple version, we partner with public school districts to provide targeted one-on-one online tutoring to drive student outcomes.
What does FEV stand for?
That's a really good question. I tell people these days that it stands for education victories. But what it technically stands for is focus, the word focus, and then eduvation, education and innovation combined. The reason why that's true is because we were previously owned by a company called the Focus Group before we were acquired recently by the Alpine investors. We were owned by the Focus Group. So it stands for Focus Eduvation. We shorted it into FEV, and now we're way too big to change the name. So
that sounds fantastic. There's a story behind the name, you know.
There's a story behind the name that's rooted in who started it, how we founded the company and started it, and I think it evolves over the course of time.
That's cool. I mean, so how do you define is that innovate, educate, and elevate?
Since 2009, FEV has announced that their mission statement was 3 keywords: innovate, educate, and elevate. Let's hear how Ryan defined these words.
So, innovate is what we do every day, right? We are trying to solve big problems in this world, or big challenges, or big opportunities, right? And so for us, we bring innovation every day to the tutoring product, because that's an online product that we bring. Not only the product, but the partnership. So we're constantly innovating how we're partnering with school districts to create scaled adoption, or how to make sure that this product's being used in the best way, how to bring research forward. But like at the core of what we do, we're innovative in all aspects of the word. At the core, in terms of educate, we see that as integration into like our district ecosystem. So for example, school districts are all using different types of data, single sign-on to aggregate all their online learning apps, different types of teaching strategies and outcome goals. And so at the core of our product you know, in the educate section, you know, we are aligning the product to the state academic standards. We are making sure it's integrated with their benchmark data, just really synchronized with what they're doing from instructional strategy approaches in the classroom, so it can be an extension of teachers and like a force multiplier. And then in addition to that, for education, we're providing high quality tutors, tutors that are highly trained, tutors that know how to tutor these types of students to be able to drive the outcomes. And then elevate is the outcomes, right? For us, elevation means driving and increasing up and to the right student outcome goals and student achievement. And that's how you get there. You bring innovation in at the core of it, you have education, and then you drive student outcomes to elevate everything.
That's the process of building a great education. You know, it's no matter like in college, in the high school, I think that process is just fitting in any places, you know? I
think you're right. If you think about, you're right, solving problems or creating the foundation with outside the box thinking or thinking differently, getting the core of it, which is the meat and potatoes, and then shooting to the moon.
Exactly.
Yeah, I like that.
Which is the most crucial thing that you have to learn in your life, you know, in the future.
That's right. I agree totally.
What do you think? What is the main change that FEV Tutor brings to most of the students in our country?
That's a great question. I think the answer to that question is a little bit more complex, but I think to simplify it, you know, it's two things. It's closing equity gaps and closing achievement gaps. So unfortunately, the majority of the school districts in the United States right now would be considered sort of at risk. So 70% of those school districts, they have a majority of students that have free and reduced lunch. If you have free and reduced lunch, you mean you're from a low poverty area. And so unfortunately, research shows that your poverty level or your socioeconomic level has a direct correlation with your academic achievement, like potential. That's an unfortunate reality. And so if that's true, you know, everything that we do is designed to sort of overcome that, right? And that's a big problem. Think about 70% of districts. There's 13,000 districts across the country, U.S. school districts. So about 10,000 of those school districts would have a majority of underserved students or at-risk students or at-opportunity students, right? And so for us, like the transformational opportunity is being able to help to drive that change through driving positive academic outcomes on scale. Like our goal is, we currently partner with 550 school districts. Our goal is to really to serve all 13,000, but certainly a majority of those 10,000 at-risk school districts. So bringing that from 500 to 5,000 to 10,000, because when we do that, we think we can make a transformational impact on K through 12 education through just making a difference in the lives of students. So if students can be successful and have a pathway to graduation and be a productive citizen of this country or other countries, like that's game changing, right? If we're increasing the level of education across the board per capita in our country, we believe that's inherently positive, and it certainly provides those students who may not otherwise have those opportunities to have opportunities that they may not even thought have been possible for them.
Wow, that sounds like a hard undertaking that you guys are working right now, because financial statement and situation is what really caused the unfairness between education. So I think that you guys are doing a great thing, according to what you said, you know, to those people who doesn't have great resources, but who really have the potential to reach a certain level in the future, you know?
Absolutely.
So it's a great thing that you guys are doing, you know, for the entire educational industry, you know? This question is kind of like out of the box of your company. So what do you think? What do you visualize the future of the educational world, domestically and internationally?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, and I appreciate what you said. Think outside the box. We say at FEV Tutor, Alpine investors acquired us on July 15th of this year. They say, you know, how do we think differently? So how do we think different, right? Mm-hmm. You know, I think we believe, and I believe that there are just that we believe that education right now is in a transformative state. It's a transformational opportunity. There is funding available, which basically drives innovation and it drives competition, which we think will bring education to the next level. Education in general is a public sector market, and so it is driven by government. And so ultimately there are forces that are outside of our control, sort of dictating some of the way that education is being directed. That being said, I think there are forces for good out there and there are forces for change. And so whether it's, differentiated school weeks and how long the school year is, how long the school week is, how much, virtual and hybrid learning and online learning can continue, like what were the good parts of pandemic-induced online learning and how can we keep those in play to create efficiencies and create innovation in the education space, and what were parts that we probably can sort of leave there. But like all of it, to me, was an opportunity. I think that's true in the U.S. and I think it's true in the global sector. I think online learning will continue to boom. I think that what I've noticed is that there's a new breed of leaders in U.S. education specifically, folks that are really motivated to do something different, something innovative, make a name for themselves by changing the world that they live in. And so I think it will be driven by those leaders that are sort of forcing change. And I think some of it was done by disruptive innovation through the pandemic and online learning induced learning. But I think it will be up to us as a global community in both the U.S. and throughout the globe to continue to foster innovation and sort of force different, like thinking differently. I think a lot of this is a mindset. Like if we collectively believe that we can think differently and do differently, then we can bring some of those innovations and keep them, to think about how, a school or a district could be different. And I think the potential for that is the only limiting factor is how we think together.
I think I agree with what you exactly said right there, because the world is definitely they need more like kind of like creativity. They need more kind of imagination. They need more kids who's able to break the box in order to make and revolutionize the world, in that case.
Absolutely.
And the power to harnessing the knowledge is learning from institution and organization like you, like great company and great forces and firms that can help them to get that kind of like mindset,
Absolutely.
Which is the crucial thing.
I agree with that completely.
So again, like I think you mentioned this before, like you said, like that virtual world, which is learning online, and it can be a huge trend. And it was at least like 2 years ago, like years ago, it's still happening right now. So why do you think that virtual world is such a huge trend, even without?
Great point. So that's a great thought and a great question. So the research says a blended learning environment is the most effective type of learning environment versus just strictly in person or strictly online. So I think especially for public education in the U.S. and maybe across the world, I think in higher ed it was more an accepted medium for delivery, like online learning and online classes. And K through 12 education, they were not set up for scaling online learning from a infrastructure standpoint until it got forced, right? But the research has always said that a blended learning environment is the most effective type of learning environment. So I think what we're seeing happening now is the ability to blend both face-to-face, in-person, and online learning together, which is exactly, again, previous to the pandemic, what the research showed was the most effective way to learn. But what it also does is I think it creates efficiencies, and it's a force multiplier for instructional time, right? Like if you can go to some of your classes online, you can go to some in person like you do now at Clark, and you can do some of your work online. I think that just for you probably creates efficiencies. It creates flexibility, mobility. It creates learning anytime. And when you can create that conceptual model, I think there's a lot more opportunity to accelerate learning outcomes and expand learning opportunities.
I mean, that sounds great, because the reason is so, like, I do agree with you, because, like, so what I've been through when I were young, especially before the pandemic, was like life was kind of boring, because you go to school every single day, you go to like listening to those boring class that you don't like, you know. Sometimes it just decrease the productivity and efficiency. So combined in virtual learning and in-person learning can reach the best point of the thing, you know. So
yeah, you're absolutely right. That's spot on.
And Ryan, again, thank you for the conversation and for this chance to interview. And good luck for the company.
Al, it was a pleasure. Thank you so much for the opportunity.